Good evening and welcome to April 17th, 2025 Traffic Commission. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And to start off, a quick roll call. Acting Chief Cullen is here. Chief Callahan is absent. Frank Stringy. Nicholas Rystrom. And Christopher Charamella here. All right, let's start off with our public hearings. Our first public hearing is to amend Schedule 8 of Title 10, parking restrictions generally by removing Wilson Street from the easterly direction, no parking anytime. The counselor is absent, but I would recommend us moving this forward to a favorable vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
quick question. Seems to me that items 1 and 2 go hand in hand.
Yep,
Switching the no parking from one side to the other.
correct. So we would have to vote to remove off the books the no parking lane on the easterly side, and then amend the Schedule 8 to include westerly of Wilson Street. Apparently, that is what the residents were hoping for in that area, and parking's easier on that side. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. You can come up for any public hearing. Yep. Proponent, opponent? Thank you, Counselor.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nope, no problem. Just name and address.
Yes, 10 Wilson Street.
Okay.
So, I actually live on the even side of
I think
the
you should
street,
just.
and that's where
There it goes.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually live on the even side of the street, and that's where most of the parking is. And we feel that there's not enough parking on the odd side of the street. So I was talking to a lot of the neighbors, and they felt the same way, that the sign should really be on the odd number side of the street. And also, there's a handicapped child that lives on the odd side, so it'd be also convenient for that family that there's no parking, so that the bus could come and pick up their child. And I think that was an issue in the past where that there was parking on both sides, so the bus was having trouble coming down the street. So I think it would be, also convenient for that family.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone have any information from the commission? I would advise to vote favorably for this.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. I was wondering if we could hear from the fire department, because I think that part of the reason that we originally had the no parking on the east side was because the apparatus had trouble making that turn.
Yes, we're okay with the change. We went out and looked at it, and I had them drive the trucks out there, and so there's no problem. Either or, either side wouldn't affect us either way. As long as the one side parking is fine.
Okay. All right.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, so the westerly side is the odd side?
The westerly side is the odd side, I believe. Yes.
Sign will be moved to the odd side, because right now it's on the even side.
So they,
So we want to switch it to the other.
so westerly is the side closest to Broadway. Easterly would be the side closest to Revere Beach Parkway.
Yeah, so it'd be
Okay.
closest to the Broadway side.
Okay. The no parking closest to the Broadway side. So yes, that does, so westerly side would have the no parking if this went into effect. The opposite side of where the signs are currently located. Okay.
And
Make
that's
sure
the
all
odd side, right?
Lines
Yes.
up.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve both items 1 and 2 together of the
Thank-
public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, all those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Public hearing item number 1 and 2 are now approved. Thank you. That was all we had this evening for public hearing. Now we can move on to the requests. Request item 1 is a request for a public hearing for the metering of 17 public parking spaces designated for public use at the Gibson Apartments.
Mr. Chairman, back during the master plan and site plan review, it was agreed to designate 17 parking spaces for public use for the boardwalk area and the future pier that the city was planning to work on. So there would be a public pier where the old pier was. For that, as part of the Chapter 91 permit also, which has to designate that area for public use, we needed public parking. So the owners of Gibson Point agreed that they would designate 17 spaces for public parking. And it was originally going to be metered. So we decided, let's try just signage, restrictive signage, and apparently the signage is not working.
I heard the same.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I talked to Zach about it, parking director, and he's in favor of maybe putting a kiosk there, parking kiosk.
All right, that's one idea. Either that or meter space. It works either way.
Yeah.
Is there any proponents or any opponents for the item number 1? No. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to move number 1 to a public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Request number 1 will be moved to a public hearing. Item number 2, request to amend Schedule 9, Section 1099090, resident parking, 24-hour enforcement. This is Prince Street, both sides, to 24-hour resident-only parking.
Was that from the residents or from the council?
That was from Councilor Cogliandro. I'm assuming through one of the residents there. I'm sorry, what? Sure. Parking Director Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Spoke with Councilor Cogliandro on this recently. Sorry, short of wind, those stairs will humble you when you run up them. So, Prince Street has been seeing some abuse recently due to the construction project at the old funeral home in that parking lot. Before this construction site picked up, we didn't hear much of Prince Street. I think it's kind of just with the times during the construction. I think some of the problems will go away, but nonetheless, that's why he put it in front of you guys tonight to see if there could be, excuse me, a change made.
Okay, with that in mind, I'm not for or against this. I do think it may push the problem off to the next street down off Broadway. But keep in mind that that project on Broadway should probably be wrapping up soon. We may want to postpone this, table this item until we can hear from some actual residents if this is still a concern after the project is complete.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the issue is because of the construction, there's, workers and whatnot that are parking there. After this building has parking, they won't be able to get parking passes, so they won't be able to utilize Prince if it's 24-hour. But I think it's a current issue with some of the contractors that are working there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I believe if we move this request forward, we would then be diverting all the parking onto the next street over instead of having it distributed a little bit.
It's exactly what's going on. My team's over there enforcing the parking meters due to the local businesses losing parking with the contractors in the area. And as with the increased enforcement, the contractors aren't always able to get out there and pay their meter in a timely manner. So they have been seeking additional parking to avoid that. Once the construction's done or it gets near completion and a lot of the contractors start filling away, I'm sure the problem will go away as well.
Awesome. Commission, maybe a motion to deny or table this item?
Motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Aye.
Request number 2 will be tabled. All right, request number 3, request to remove the following Title 10, Section 10, 34020, subsection G, multifamily residential properties having more than 6 units shall not be eligible for resident parking stickers. For location 42 Revere Street, 4 resident parking stickers. This is one that I would rather not move to a public hearing for multiple reasons. I think this would open a very large issue with parking along the entirety of our city, especially since there are so many of these properties around that do not currently allow for on-street resident parking. And this would most likely open a can of worms for all those other buildings to have a leg to stand on to fight our ordinance. It's in the leases that they are not allowed to have parking on street, and I think it should remain as such.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think there are 12 units there, and there's at least 12 parking spaces in the back there. So we could leave it under the discretion of the parking director. If somebody has 2 vehicles, maybe issue, under certain circumstances, a parking sticker.
But I think if we move this one forward, it would open it up for all the very large apartment buildings as well. One being Gibson Point and all these larger developments may take issue with it. I think it really would create an influx in the need for street parking, and we already have an issue currently.
Just to give the commission an update on this specific address, it's been under ordinance since the inception, which has happened in 2020. I've never heard anything from this building up until recently. A new resident moved in. The property manager told that resident to come down to my office to get a parking permit. During that visit, she was informed that that is not available to that building. There was a miscommunication between her property manager or her leasing office and what the city was allowing. After she found out, after moving into the house, having 2 vehicles, she wanted to put this in front of the commission. But I would agree with you that, you know, speaking with Frank Stringy, these buildings did get variances at one point for parking, which is why they're exempt from the system. And I understand that I have discretionary power, but, you know, you rip the Band-Aid off. People talk, especially in these small buildings, and I have a congestion issue in the roadways. So more often than not, I try not to use that power because I understand the adverse effect of it. But I wanted to give you an idea of why this came up in front of you tonight.
Yeah, and I very much agree with you. This will become a larger issue if we approve this.
Mr. Chairman, I tend to agree with you. I think it will cause further problems with regard to on-street parking. For that reason, I'm going to make a motion to deny this request.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, all those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, request number 3 is denied. Thank you. Request number 4 is to place adequate signage and/or blinking lights ahead of all speed bumps to provide sufficient warning to drivers and improve roadway safety. Furthermore, that the Traffic Commission and Department of Public Works conduct a review of all existing speed bumps locations to ensure proper signage and report back with recommendations. I believe this is something that we can refer to the traffic working group, and we can address this outside of the Traffic Commission. Does everyone else, the commission be in favor of making that motion?
A motion to transfer this to the working group, traffic working group.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I thought this was already part of the standard procedure for speed humps, that they would have,
But they want us to reinvestigate all
Oh,
existing speed bumps. So we can put in front of the traffic working group, we go through all the existing speed bumps and make whatever changes need to be made.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to second the motion to re-evaluate existing speed bumps by the traffic working group.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This will be pushed back into the traffic working group, and we can assess that there. Thank you. Number 4, so we're moving on to 5.
To number 5. Can we skip number 6 till after and do number 7,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
Julie needs these together,
Okay.
okay?
Which,
So number 5 is gonna be to install 2 speed bumps, and then we're gonna go to parking feasibility, DPAP.
okay.
Do you want me to do it on yours? So this will actually be number 5.
All right. Earlier today, I had a conversation with the counselor who requested the item for the 2 speed bumps. We're going to postpone that to the next council meeting, next commission meeting.
Mr.
So,
Chairman, I'll make a motion to table.
is there a second?
second, but don't those automatically go to the traffic working group? To do a feasibility analysis?
They need to present us with the 10 signatures from the residents who request the speed bump, and then we'll move it forward. All right. So request number 5 is postponed. We are going to move on to request number 6. The MBTA, the Department of Planning and Community Development, will provide an update.
We're gonna skip that one. We're gonna skip number 6 till
I was told to skip number 6.
So which one do you want to do? Do you want to do the parking feasibility or the MBTA?
Let's go with the MBTA. I was just asked to skip number 6 and push it to the end.
Okay.
Why don't we just go in the exact order that they are, and let's not make any changes. Okay, Mayor Keefe requests the following: Campbell Ave, both directions, from Centennial to Revere Beach Parkway, change from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. Any proponents?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ira Novoselsky, 53 Dehone Street, Ward 2 Counselor. Campbell Ave, we already put 1 speed bump on Campbell Ave, but what happens is, before the speed bump, people are flying up the street. They're building a new building, got 3 new buildings. They're building 3 new buildings on Campbell Ave. And I was there yesterday with a police officer, and a guy came up there at 50 miles an hour. Nothing to slow him down. And the speed limit, that length between Centennial and Revere Beach Parkway is 25 miles an hour. I'm asking, by request of the citizens and the residents, for a lower speed limit. So, number 1, we want to lower the speed limit down to 20 miles an hour. Now, a lot of streets that are in the city, wider streets and longer streets are 20 miles an hour. And here you have a residential street that's 25 miles an hour. So we want to get that lowered down to 20. That's the first step. We got some other things going on, but right now, this is what we want to target.
Thank you, Counselor. Do you believe there are other items you would like addressed with this? Should this be something we should move into our traffic working group as well, to see if there are other speed calming measures we can take?
Well, this is one thing I want to happen, but the other things, people are asking, there's other petitions going around for additional speed bumps because of the speeding that's going on.
Should we try to group this in
I'd
as a
I'd
whole?
rather not, I'd rather do them separately, because it'll take too long for one thing to get through. You know, the 20 mile an hour, we want to get reduced one way or the other. Whether the other things happen or not, we still want to get it reduced.
Okay. Are there any other proponents or opponents for this?
And this is only a request anyways right now. You
Yeah.
have to go to a public hearing.
Yeah. Commission, do you have any input on the reduce from 25 to 20 on Campbell Ave speed limit?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to push this to a public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Move to public hearing. Item number 6. All right, item number 7, MBTA and the Department of Planning and Community Development will provide an update on the Better Bus Network bus stop pilot that was launched on December 15th, 2024. The presentation will review the effectiveness of the pilot's goals. Relocation of bus stops for routes 116, 119, and 110 along Broadway and Park Avenue to improve transfers for riders. Installation of new transit signal technology to allow buses to safely serve the new bus stops within adverse impacts to intersection operations. We're just going to go in order of what's on the agenda at this point. I don't want to keep trying to change the agenda last minute. Not yet. Give him a second to.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, my name's Olivia Mobade. I'm a project manager at the MBTA on the Better Bus Project team. I'm joined today with Ed Luna, director of the Better Bus Project Management Office at the MBTA. And now my slides are up, so perfect timing. So we're here today to talk about the pilot that has been ongoing at the intersections of Broadway, Park, and Central for the past 4 months now. Just an overview of what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to give you a brief background of the project. I'm going to give you updates on the pilot as promised in our agreement with you all. And then we're going to discuss next steps and also any questions you all might have. Why are we here today? So the bus network redesign project, the first phase, launched December 15th of 2024, and it increased and simplified bus service along Central Ave, Park Ave, and Broadway. We have worked with the city for the past more than a year now to make the transfer process for riders and for routes within the area better and improve pedestrian safety while also monitoring the impact on intersection operations and curb use in the area. And the improvements that we have implemented were approved on a pilot basis. And part of our commitment as part of this pilot is to give you an update on how it's going. So just a very brief reminder, the goal of this project, the overarching goal, is to make a new transfer for bus riders easy and accessible. I'll go over a little bit of why that is, but essentially we consolidated 3 bus routes into 2, making 2 of them frequent routes, the first frequent bus routes that Revere has had. In doing so, we needed to think about new transfers that people might be taking between these new frequent routes. So just a review of the timeline from this point. We first came to you all in May of 2024 and presented our proposal. It was approved as a 6-month pilot in June by you all. We installed paint and transit signals in the fall, and the new service launched in December. We're coming to you all about halfway through the pilot to give you an update on how it's going. The pilot is set to be ended in June of 2025, and if approved, we would do final construction hopefully fall of this year, pending approval time and lead time. So just a brief overview of how bus service previously operated in this area. The blue route shown here is the Route 110 that travels east and west. It previously used the Park Ave busway in one direction, which is the road that we call the driveway behind the fire department. We had a whole lot of service going north and south on Broadway, and then we had Route 117 shown in red that went up Broadway and turned onto Central Ave. I'm pointing that one out specifically because that is the major service change that we implemented in December, was eliminating that one route, which now requires riders to transfer from one frequent route heading up and down Broadway to another frequent route heading east and west. As part of this, we also adjusted the routing of that east-west Route 110. This means that it no longer uses that Park Ave busway, including an area that's actually a parcel owned by the MBTA outlined in red here. This allows us to have a slight overlap in the Route 110 heading east and west and the north-south routes to allow for shared stops between the two. So what we did was we consolidated 4 stops into 2 to allow for that transfer for riders. So instead of them having to walk 800 feet to transfer from bus to bus, they now have to walk 0 feet. This is a savings in walking for people that might have trouble walking or have children with them of essentially the equivalent of the entire border of the city. So every single day, it's equivalent to someone not having to walk around the entire border of the city. So a huge savings for our riders. In order to make this work, we installed bus queue jump lanes on the outer lanes of the area between Park Ave and Central Ave on Broadway. This allows us to serve buses heading north and south in the outer lanes. We also pushed the stop bars back at Park Ave and Central Ave to allow larger vehicles to turn more easily. We also installed transit signal heads, shown as those little rectangles. You've probably seen them out on the streets. Those allow the buses to merge back into the north and southbound traffic lanes safely with their own signal phase. They look a little weird, that's intentional. The goal here is for the bus operators to know what to do, but for other vehicle operators to not be familiar with them and not use them. So this is what it looks like as an after condition. You have some buses that continue turning right from the bus stops, and we have some buses continuing straight using that transit signal. I'll note that during the morning, there is the peak hour from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. bus lane heading southbound. During that time, the transit signal at Park Ave in Broadway is turned off because the bus can continue straight in its own lane and it does not need to merge back in. These signals, I should note, are only activated when they detect a bus or something that looks a lot like a bus. I'll talk a little bit more about how we're making that process work better next month. So one other thing that we did was we actually had to reopen a pair of stops. So we were out there from about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day for the first week of the service changes to make sure that riders knew where to go because the service change was significant and we wanted to make sure that everyone was all set. What we heard from riders, a lot of elderly riders specifically, is that the loss of the pair at Broadway and Central and Broadway and Fernwood, essentially in front of the old Rite Aid and in front of the Walgreens, was a challenge for them. It was the one stop that headed to Northgate Mall that was served by the 2 bus routes that serve it. So instead, people would essentially not be able to stand at the same stop and get either bus going there. So this was just a challenge specifically for elderly folks trying to reach shopping and medical care. We worked with the city to reopen temporarily that stop pair for the remainder of the pilot to ensure that elderly residents were not impacted. As I mentioned, right now the transit signal will turn on only if it sees a bus, but MBTA buses aren't actually the only buses that use Revere streets. I'm sure you all have seen a lot of school buses, especially during dismissal time. And until next month, it is possible that other bus-like objects are actually able to turn the transit signal on. We are essentially creating a multi-factor detection system that will launch in May that will keep only specific buses that are heading north-south as being able to use that transit signal. So essentially, we are making the number of potential times the transit signal is turning on much lower, at least 34% less. In doing so, we are also increasing the period of the transit signal by 1 second. The reason for this is the current transit signal green time is simply too short for a bus to be able to safely get through the intersection. So while you are seeing a 34% decrease in activations beginning next month, it will be a 10% longer cycle. So still an overall win, but the cycle will be longer. This will ensure that buses clear the intersection and aren't blocking it. Before I go into evaluation, I just want to see if anyone has any questions.
Are there any changes you're advising us to make with this?
Yes.
At this point? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
There are, and I'm going to get to those in just a minute.
Okay.
I just want to give you all briefly, before I do, an update on the evaluation as requested, just so you know what you're kind of working with before I ask for changes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go over how the signals are operating, effects on auto traffic, effects on bus travel, and then impact to riders in Revere. First of all, we talk to people. That's always a good way to get started, right? So we talked to the crossing guard at the corner of Broadway and Park, and actually someone who was covering her when she was out one day. We basically heard from them that they were really positive about these changes to the intersection. They saw new students taking the bus to school now that there was a stop closer to it. They mentioned that the intersection is complicated, but the changes didn't really seem to make the operations during dismissal any more complicated for them than it had been before. We also spoke to riders who are really excited about this frequent service. They really love it. I kept trying to get specific information about the stop, and they basically just kept saying, "Oh my gosh, this service is so good. Thank you so much for the change." We did hear from people, though, that said things like, I actually used to live next to a stop that you consolidated into this one, but because the service is so good, I don't mind walking a little bit longer. And other folks saying, this service is really good and this stop is really good and it's getting me to school and to work and to home on time. We also talked to bus operators that are using this intersection. We heard from them that overall things are going okay. The transit signal is really helpful in allowing them to merge safely back into traffic. They actually want us to investigate using these in other cities around the region. We have heard that turning right from Broadway to Central and from Broadway to Park is still pretty tight, even though we moved those stop bars back. And they did have some comments about the spacing with those the new stops that we put in and the old stops in front of Walgreens and Rite Aid, saying basically, why are we stopping about 400 feet from one stop to another? Typically, it's closer to 1,000 feet between stops. We also looked at the numbers, and we crunched the numbers for you all. We're finding that overall, about 6% of all cycles of these signals have the transit signal activated. This is actually lower than we expected. That's great news. It means that we're not impacting your intersection very much. During peak periods, it goes up to 12%, honestly still less than we had expected. And the total maximum we've seen is 7 times on Central and 11 times at Park in an hour. In terms of how this is impacting auto travel through here, in terms of travel time along the corridors in both intersections, there's basically negligible impact, and same with vehicle throughput. So this means that whatever we did, it's not actually impacting the choices that drivers are making. They're not trying to avoid this intersection, and it's not changing the way that they're traveling. We did see that there is a slight increase in intersection delay at 3 p.m. As we know, 3 p.m. is very busy over here, about 10 seconds. So from 69 to 79 seconds of delay at 3 p.m. and from 32 seconds to 49 seconds at 6 p.m. on Broadway Park Ave. So for 2 hours of the day at one of the intersections, there is a noticeable increase. I'll note that the increase at 6 p.m. brings the delay still not above what the delay we see at 5 p.m. So it's essentially just an extension of delay in the peak period rather than a huge increase overall. In terms of how the bus is using this intersection, we are seeing that it takes longer for the 110 heading eastbound. This is not a surprise. We're no longer using the Park Ave busway, the area behind the fire station, which was basically a shortcut for us. So we are seeing a delay because of that. This is something we're willing to live with because these changes in providing this same stop transfer to our riders has been very important. So we're willing to be okay with an increase over there. The 116 outbound, so that northbound bus, is seeing 1 to 2 minute decrease in travel time. And for all other buses in all other directions, essentially, again, a negligible impact. Yes.
Sorry, I just have one question. So the previous slide you had up,
Yes.
so that increase from Broadway to Park, is that an increase of 11 seconds, or, I'm sorry, 10 seconds, or is that an increase over a minute per vehicle?
It's an increase of 10 seconds.
Okay,
So you used to have to wait 1 minute and 9 seconds. Now you might have to wait 1 minute and 19 seconds.
okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. And just to look at our ridership, we are sending 5,000 people through this corridor every day on a bus. To put it in perspective, there's about 30,000 cars that go through this intersection. So by having the bus travel through here, you're basically avoiding adding 18% additional cars through this intersection. So that's really cool. Great to see that a lot of folks are using that system, which makes this intersection work more effectively for everyone. We're seeing in total 255 people are making that transfer that we found is so important and wanted to make sure was accessible and safe. And we are seeing 580 total people boarding the bus at those new 2 stops. I will pause for questions before we talk about next steps.
Do any of the commissioners have any other questions? So it looks like it's just a wash as far as times. If 10 seconds is the worst that one of the riders can be inconvenienced for these extra added, more frequent bus stops, it's not worst case scenario.
Yeah, we were really happy to see this. And again, there are some things like the adjustments to the signals that are happening next month that are actually going to hopefully make it even better. So it seems like things are working pretty well and we're benefiting a ton of riders every day.
Awesome, that's good news.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay.
A quick question?
Yes.
You mentioned the reopening of the 2 bus stops further up Broadway for some specific people. What was the impact of reopening those, and what's the impact of then closing them again?
That's an excellent question. I do have a recommendation in my slide deck about what we should do there. Briefly, the impact temporarily has been that people don't have to walk about 1,000 feet to a bus stop to get to where they want to go. But we have a proposal that would alleviate the issue with having 2 stops so close together while fixing the issue for those riders.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So, pending approval from you all, as we had discussed last year, our plan, as always, has been to actually reconstruct the sidewalk at the bus stops between Park and Central on Broadway. The reason we hadn't done this before for you all was because the project was approved as a pilot, and we didn't want to expend funds on permanent sidewalk improvements if it could then be canceled. But we do have plans stamped in hand, ready to go to reconstruct and repair the areas outlined here at both bus stops to make them fully ADA compliant. We also have approval from the property owner at Citizens Bank to extend the sidewalk improvements onto the sidewalk that is within their property line and make improvements to some of the holes in the sidewalk in that area where there used to be lights in the sidewalk, actually. So pending your approval and making this a permanent situation, we would be able to implement those repairs.
Can you just go back quickly?
Yes.
Can you just walk through what the actual improvements are? I'm having trouble.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to forward these plans to you all. Essentially, some of the sidewalk panels here have been impacted by tree roots and just wear and tear. So this would be repouring that concrete to make it a flat surface with an ADA compliant grade. It also does propose putting in benches at both stops. That's an option you all are welcome to say yes or no to, but we'd love to provide those to our riders.
So the sidewalks in these two areas will be at the same elevation they are now with the curbing and all. It's just that some of the breaks that are there, like tree pits and the old lighting, those will be gone, so the surface will be more continuous? Is that-
Correct, yes. Basically as is, just in better condition.
Thank you.
So the request is just the bench, there's no proposed shelter or anything to that?
Unfortunately, due to these locations and the frontages of the businesses right in front of the sidewalk, there's not actually space to put in shelters. We do have some different types of shelters we're investigating. It's possible we might be able to put some in here in the future. But we did talk to riders about this. We asked them, like, hey, would you prefer to have a stop at a different location and walk and have a shelter, or would you rather have that same stop transfer here? And we heard overall that folks preferred to have that same stop transfer here, even if there wasn't a shelter.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Yes. And now I'm seeing that this is a video that might not play. So I will follow up with you all and show you this photo after. There are a couple things that we found during this pilot. So it's actually great that we have this as a pilot and are able to make these adjustments. The first challenge has been, as I had mentioned before, those right turns from Broadway to Central and from Broadway to Park for large vehicles. We moved the stop bars back 10 to 12 feet at both of the intersections. Let me just go to the next page so you can see what I'm talking about. So this area shown here, we moved the stop bar back about 12 feet. We are finding that our buses are still having trouble taking these tight turns. Part of the time, it's because vehicles are stopped beyond the stop bar. Other times, it's simply because it's a large vehicle right at the actual stop bar. This actually has the potential to cause delay by the bus having to take a really slow turn, blocking traffic for other vehicles that might be behind it. And it's also obviously a safety concern. A tight turn like that can be challenging for folks to navigate. So our proposal would be to adjust the striping of this area slightly. It's shown roughly here in red. Our proposal would be to move the stop bars back an additional 10 feet We actually could move it back total of 15 feet more without impacting the signal timing, but we've heard from Revere staff that that might be too much. So we'd like to propose 10 feet as a compromise. It would still provide us a huge benefit. And again, not just for that MBTA buses, but any large vehicles that are making these turns.
Okay.
A quick question on that. So the one at Park Ave, you're saying that you're looking to move it back 10 feet, but the signal timing would not be changed?
The signal timing would not be changed. We have dug into the signal timing and requirements at the federal and state level, and they would permit us to move the stop bar back 15 feet more until, before we had to add an additional second of red or yellow time to the signal phase.
Is that something that could be looked at anyway, even though you're
You'd
saying-
like for the signal to add another red or
So,
yellow second?
From my experience coming down Park Ave, there is some times where that signal turns green and only one or two vehicles are able to get through. If you're gonna move that stop bar back, less cars will get through. And, you know, in some cases, the queue on Park Ave is back all the way past Alston Street, you know, even past Barrett. So I think that we should certainly look at the impact, or at least the possibility of adjusting the timing.
Sure, we are happy to present what that might look like to you all next month. But just know that, you know, according to guidance, this is technically okay. Obviously, if you all would like the adjustment to happen in coordination with signal timing, we can discuss that.
Understood. Now, is the problem because people are driving beyond the stop bar currently, or do you believe it's more the fact that there's just not enough room?
So it's twofold. So
Okay.
that's why we're proposing not just moving the stop bar back, but putting in that striping, that X. So if someone is stopped at the stop bar today, it is not ideal. It probably might take 20 to 15 seconds to take the turn. If someone is stopped beyond the stop bar, it could mean a bus not being able to turn and being stuck in the intersection, or taking 30, 35 seconds to take the turn.
How far back is the stop bar currently from Broadway?
12 feet at Park Ave and 10 feet at Central Ave.
Okay.
So it would be proposing going from 12 to 22 and from 10 to 20, which is about equivalent to a car's length away from the crosswalk.
I'm just concerned that it might confuse people a little bit if they're forced to stop so far back. You know, it just,
Yeah, and so I
it's a
will
little
mention.
strange.
I agree, for sure. There are some other options that we could do instead of the X box striping, if that would help. So other things we could do is put text on the street past the stop bar that says, "Do not block" or "Keep clear," if you think that would be a more clear message to folks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think that'll go a long way, because I witness that a lot, and cars creep past that stop bar now. I think that would prevent the creepage further if that was Xed off, and we could maybe keep it at the 10 or 12 feet rather than having to expand it to 15 feet.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I think they,
If we can keep the residents stop, all the traffic to actually stop at the current stop bar, maybe that would help you guys out a little bit. I'm concerned I'm pushing it back 22 feet, right? So that would be, it's 12 now. 22 feet seems a little far to have the stop bar away from the turning lane, because it would just,
Right.
it seems just a little much.
right now, people don't acknowledge that stop bar.
Yeah, they're
'Cause
probably
it's-
pulling all the way up still.
I think if you reinforce it with the X and you do what you plan on doing, I think it'll work. You'll see a large improvement.
What if I proposed a compromise, if we're going out there and adjusting the striping anyway, to put in that X box? Could we move it back an additional 5 feet at both intersections?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I agree on the Park Ave. probably wouldn't make sense to go too far back, but as far as Central goes, we would probably, at the fire department, get maximum benefit by pushing that stop bar back more, because that helps us back in. We have to empty that lane out to get our ladder truck in the station, so that could definitely help us, if that would be something we could do.
Understood. All right, I do believe, I think Central makes a little bit more sense than Park, because,
Park is actually works for
Really?
us. It's a slightly tighter turn.
Central comes off at like an angle. You have to like loop back. I thought that would be tighter.
Sometimes on Park, there's cars parked right on the side there in front of Volare, and that makes it more difficult for the bus to get between the parked cars and the car stopped at the stop
Okay.
bar.
Well, if
I
the
mean, both of
commission,
them, neither of them are really great.
And increasing the radius of that intersection wouldn't help
The radius is already so constrained, I don't think it's possible.
to make it larger.
Yeah.
if the commission agrees, if you guys don't mind, would you mind us actually going out there in person and taking a look and see if we can come to an agreement? 5
Absolutely.
feet might be fair. I'd just like to see it myself, because
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just concerned I'm pushing it too far back as well.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to do that with you all.
Okay.
Can I just ask, Mr. Chairman asked this question, but if vehicles on Park Ave are actually stopping at the stop bar, the buses have enough room, there's no problem, is that right?
They have enough room if they take the turn at about 5 miles an hour, maybe less. So very, very slowly.
Okay.
And again, that's dependent on no car being parked there. So that area is actually hashed out here on this diagram on Park Ave next to the Volare as something we want to emphasize, that no one should be parking there.
Okay.
But those buses aren't, I mean, they're taking the turn from stop at that bus stop, right? So
Yes.
they're not really able to get up to much faster speed than 5 miles an hour anyway, isn't that right?
It's true. I will say it is tight.
Yeah.
Historically,
It is tight.
we've had some challenges with this intersection. I actually took that bus over here today, and I asked the driver, I was like, how's it going? And he said, it's totally fine, except for that one turn.
All right. Well, that's fine. We can go out there and we'll take a look.
Okay.
And we'll make it agree upon. We can adjust it back. I'm just concerned on how far.
Absolutely. We're willing to work with you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so sorry, I have one more thing to talk about with you all today, and this kind of goes to your question earlier. So we talked about stop spacing. So right now, the space between the stops that we put in and the stops we reopened is about 300 feet. On average, we prefer 1,000 feet spacing. So this is just a lot of stops in one area. It just, it's better for coverage, for curb use, to spread them out. But we do recognize that having a stop pair served by all those bus routes, the 119, the 116, and the 411, is really important to our riders. So we do have a proposal. We are proposing to move the stop pair in front of the Walgreens and the old Rite Aid to south of Mountain Ave on Broadway. This results in a net increase of 2 parking spaces along that corridor, and it evens out the spacing, so you have 600 feet between one stop pair and 700 feet between the next. It also provides a better, more convenient stop location for riders coming to or from Revere High. We know that a ton of students go to the bus after school, so this would actually make their trip more convenient as well.
Okay.
So just to give you an idea of what that might look like, we're on page 27 here. This would put a stop right south of Mountain Ave heading southbound and south of Mountain Ave heading northbound, shown here. We have an option to put a shelter at the northbound stop, a narrow shelter, that would not be impacting any business or building frontages. On the southbound side, we are exploring options. It's a more constrained sidewalk, but we're exploring options that would be essentially an extra small shelter that we could fit in there if you all are interested. In putting this stop pair in, instead of just closing that other stop pair, means that we are avoiding adding 400 additional people getting on and off at the stop pair between Park and Central, which is likely an operational thing that we probably don't want to see over there. And it also means that we are avoiding 170 additional pedestrian crossings of that crosswalk at Central Ave and Broadway per day. And that crosswalk is push button activated, so that would have some potential challenges for your intersection over there.
Just one more question.
Yes.
If you go back at page 26, I'm just curious, 4+ spaces, but there's an asterisk there.
So during the morning peak, when you have the bus lane there from 4 to 9 a.m., you wouldn't have parking there. So I just wanted to put an asterisk
okay,
there.
okay.
It's real though for the rest of the day after 9 a.m.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes,
So we're looking at a net increase of 2 parking spaces? in that
correct.
zone. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's nice.
Question on the slide on the next page, and this is, I guess, more of a general question. Do you find any change in ridership if there is a shelter at a stop or not?
It really depends. Generally speaking, some riders do prefer stops with shelters. Other times, riders prefer stops that are just most convenient to them. So it can really vary. We generally try to put shelters in when we can at stops that have ridership, I believe over 150 riders per day, and both of these stops would be eligible based on that standard.
Okay.
If you were to, would you still consider putting these stops here, or would you still want to put them if you weren't able to put the shelters?
That would be a challenging trade-off for riders that are relying on the shelters in front of the Walgreens and the old Rite Aid today. But it is something that would benefit a lot of folks by retaining these stops. So it seems to make sense to us to put the shelters in if we're able to fit them. It would be an investment by the MBTA in the area. We also would be offering to do sidewalk reconstruction as needed in these areas as part of this project to make sure that it's fully ADA compliant.
All right, thank you. Now, does the MBTA, I'm just curious, when these shelters go into place, does the MBTA go by and check them every so often? Because I know they get defaced and stuff like that, and I hate to see.
Yeah,
something-
it's a great question.
Okay.
So we have a contractor that we contract out, Intersection, that maintains and operates our shelters. So if anything is broken or defaced, as long as someone lets us know, or if we hear from a rider, we go ahead and implement those repairs. We
Okay.
have hundreds of shelters through our system, and lots of folks out there repairing them.
Awesome, thank you.
So the shelters aren't owned by the MBTA, they're owned by a private entity. Samusa, what?
They are responsible for maintenance. I don't have the specifics of the contract right now, but
Doesn't matter, I'm just
yeah.
trying to make a point.
If you could pass that number along, that'd be awesome.
I'm sorry, the
If you-
number
Just
of.
the contact of the maintenance.
Oh, I can definitely provide the contact for maintenance. It's actually within the MBTA. We would connect you all with them. So
Oh, okay.
happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, because we've called the MBTA in the past on these shelters, and they
Yeah.
directed us to another entity.
All right. So, commission, I'm sorry, is that all?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. That was a lot.
So thank you, everybody, for sitting through that presentation. There's a lot to take in here. Julie DeMauro, Department of Planning and Community Development. I think the next step here is for the commission to decide to whether or not to move this to a public hearing in May. One, to make the pilot permanent. Two, to formally put in the changes that we talked about tonight. I know that the Park Ave stop bar, that will have to be adjusted, and I think you're looking for a demonstration on that. But we would come back in May with another proposal that could be voted on for the May meeting. But I think at this point, everything that you have asked the MBTA to do, they have done, and they have been very responsive in all of your requests. So I'd like to request that we move this to a public hearing for May.
All right.
Motion to move to a public hearing?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? Move to public hearing.
Thank you. And I think the next item on the agenda is the Shirley Avenue feasibility parking.
Yeah, we're a little mixed
That
up with
was
the
supposed to
agendas
be
right now.
before this, so let's see if we can.
Let's go to item number 8, and then we'll double back to the one that's missing off the agenda. So amendment to schedule, oh Jesus, 19, section 1099, 19-0, on-street meter zones. Please see attached. All right, there's a couple amendments to the parking schedules relative to meters that need to be implemented. Director of
Mr.
Parking.
Chairman, members of the commission, thank you.
Thank you.
In front of you tonight, you have amendments to Schedule 14 parking meters, parking meter zones, where we provided you the whole list of what currently exists plus what we're adding, so we don't want you to be confused. The black lettering is what's already existing on the books in place on the street. The ones in green lettering is what we're looking to add. We just wanted to put it into the appendix accordingly so you could see how it would look in line with each other. So a few different requests. One, we're going to start with the Shirley Ave district. We're looking to add a number of meters throughout the corridor, 44 in total, various locations. First one being Sandler Square. This one comes on for Sandler Square. There's one's listed as Dehon, one's listed as Centennial. We want to put them in Sandler Square as there's 4 operating businesses in this area. We removed the meters in 2019 when the housing development came on board, 1719 Dehon, and there wasn't much business going on in the area. Now, today, you have 4 operating businesses, one Chocolafe, one being Capri, the other one being Crown Royal Chicken, and then you have the FedEx Revere Business Center. These businesses have reached out to both my department, Community Development Office, and the Ward Council looking for some type of relief. There's not much flexibility with parking in this area. Everything is 24-hour residential. So we're looking to bring back on Dehon and Centennial, 4 spaces each side, into the square, and we are looking to bring that into a public hearing, as well as additional meter locations throughout the Shirley Ave district. With the increase of growth of new business over there, the businesses used to be in a centric location on Shirley Ave. They have now started expanding across the corridor, making a more need for parking prior to Walnut, which is why we are looking for meters up and down Shirley Ave in between 72 Shirley Ave to Walnut. It's about 12 spaces on the northerly side. In conjunction, what we requested for Centennial, what we're requesting for North Shore Road. And in lieu, there's a second part where there's 15-minute spaces throughout the corridor. So on top of adding meter locations, we're actually looking to increase meter rates in the Shirley district. One of the things we're trying to promote down there is we want to bring on 15-minute sensors. Sensors will be attached to the parking meters. They will provide courtesy time for any vehicle pulling into a spot. These sensors are pretty good. They use them in Malden in their business district. They can identify a vehicle engulfing in a parking space, and they will automatically prompt that meter to provide 15 minutes of courtesy time. One of the things we run into the Shirley Ave district a lot, it's very dense. It's either a parking meter or 24-hour residential. Not much freedom and not much flexibility, and what we run into is a lot of times with the modern-day Uber drivers or Uber Eats, things like that, trying to do a quick pickup order, move on with that order and deliver it to the right person, or even the average person coming home for the night, wanting to get a bite before they go home. They're trying to make a 3-minute stop, get in and out, pick up their to-go order, and more often than not, they're running into a parking ticket. The reason why we want to create not only the 15-minute sensors, but we're asking for the meter rate increases, as the meter account that this revenue generated goes into pays for the overhead of my department and the employees. You know, it's always nice to give something back to the community and find a way to provide more e-commerce and become more business friendly, but at the same time, there are bills that need to be paid. So we didn't want to put our foot in our mouth per se and get a little ahead of ourselves. We're trying to help out, but, you know, put the department in a fiscal disposition. So in lieu of the Shirley Ave corridor, we are looking, like I said, to add 44 meters. That would add 110 to the corridor in total. We would also look to take all 110 meters and install sensors to provide 15-minute parking.
Okay. Mr. Valo, I just have two questions.
Please.
Is this in conjunction with community development
Yeah.
about their feasibility with the Dihon Centennial?
Yes.
Okay.
Ultimately, the ordinance states that the request has to come from the parking director to the traffic commission, which is why we just
Okay.
reworded it.
Thank you. And the rate increase, is that specific to the Shirley Ave area?
Correct. So we're gonna, in conjunction, run a pilot program on Broadway with 9 sensors that the Parking Advisory Committee approved to be purchased. And what we want to do is we want to gather some data on Broadway to see if the rate needs to be increased to the same amount and how we can better add more of those sensors to the Broadway corridor. The Broadway corridor is home to a lot more meters. The reason why Shirley Ave was able to come up a little faster is it was grant funding provided by DPCD to make this happen in conjunction with their TED district and their parking study they have going on down there.
Okay.
Mr. Director, question for you.
Please.
What's the proposed increase in the rates?
It'd go, for the Shirley Ave, would be $1 to $1.50. Excuse me? Right now, it's $1 an hour.
Okay.
We're looking for $1.50 an hour, which would ultimately be a quarter for 10 minutes. But along the way, you would also still be getting 15 minutes for free on top of, before that coin is deposited. So that 15 minutes would be in conjunction with whatever you added to pay for your stay. The idea of the 15 minutes is to try to move these spots over a little quicker, allow that in and out service for these individuals getting there while maintaining some structure.
Okay. And just curious, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Hey,
but
go ahead.
Boston, were they at
Boston, I believe.
$2 an hour?
It goes to different zones. Back Bay, I think, is like,
250?
so you can go to the Back Bay, it's 450, 475. North End has different rates. It really depends on, they do dynamic pricing across the whole city based on the demands of that area.
Okay.
So not two areas in the same, in Boston usually have the same meter price.
Understood. And so this would be, is this comparable with those surrounding communities?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Commission?
we've been slow rolling. Even in 2018, 2019, we went up on our meter rates. We were at 50 cents an hour.
Oh,
Most
wow.
cities were above, beyond us. So we still continue to play catch up with parking fees and penalties.
All right. So I believe we should look favorable upon this and move to public hearing, or unless there's someone else who'd like to speak to the matter. Any other proponents?
We do have some support from
All
DPCD
right,
here,
let's
which I
hear
would
'em.
love to get that. We also have a signed petition from some of the business owners in the Dihon Square area.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you.
And we have the ward councilor here who may want to speak as well.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Yes.
Traffic Commission, John Festa, Business Liaison for the City of Revere, and respectfully requesting that the commission here look into the feasibility of the additional parking meters, as Zach was stating, in the Dihon and Centennial Avenue areas, which is what I'm speaking on this evening. To try to promote access for these small businesses in these locations. I've been working with Zach and with Councilor Novoselsky, but we have a company called Stantec Consulting, which is doing a parking study on the Shirley Avenue corridor. You probably heard them before because they also did the study on the Broadway corridor as well. We've had meetings in the area, and we received input from these businesses that Zach spoke about, the 4 businesses. Matter of fact, I have a petition here signed by them that if you didn't receive it in your package, I'd be more than happy to give a copy of it for you today. Because what we're really trying to, in this petition, obviously, they're supporting the feasibility to see what can be done in that particular area to help them. Because what we're trying to do is we're looking, by adding these additional meters, we're really looking to give the parking options for many of the patrons that go down there and visit it. Right now, it's very difficult. But we're also looking, we're also working in conjunction with the area residents to come to a solution. And we feel like we have one, what Zach was explaining and what he is recommending for that particular area. So I just wanted to, I know that Councilor Novoselsky is wanted to speak on this as well as Zach, but just wanted to wholeheartedly tell this commission that the Department of Community Development supports the motion of looking into the feasibility of having this occur. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents? Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Ira Novoselsky, 53 Deer Home Street, Ward 2 Counselor. I have had meetings with Mr. Fester and also with the local business people down in the Sandler Square area, the 4 businesses down there, and, you know, they signed a petition looking for some help. They weren't very specific. They just wanted to look into the feasibility of what we can do to add meters or something that could move parking quicker and allow their people to stay a little longer, but not too long, or people coming to the train and running to Beachmont and coming back and stuff like that. So the list that we have, there's a few items that I want to adjust with them, you know, even though you may want to put it towards a public hearing today, which is no problem. But, you know, we may adjust it with the total number of meters between now and then.
Okay.
Okay, there's a couple of spots here, but I don't know if you want to hear from now, is they want to add like 12 meters on Shirley Ave on the north side between Walnut and Thornton Street. You know, in those business districts from Jamie's buildings they built. Not necessarily all the way down to Thornton Street because you got apartments there. And they're not supposed to have cars anyways, but that's besides the point. But that's, and on Dohone Street, you know, which is the street I live on, down in the triangle at Sandler Square, one side has 7 spaces, one side has 6 spaces. So I've asked for 3 on either side to accommodate the businesses instead of 4. That's what I would rather see, and still try and take care of as much as the residents, because I have to balance. And we've changed the parking down there at least 5 times in the last 7 years. To you know, someone wants 30 minutes, someone wants 1 hour, someone wants 2 hours. And that's what's confusing some of the parking folks of how long they've been there and what's metered and what's permit parking and to that stuff. So I don't mind adjusting and trying to take care of the business as much as possible, but I still have to look at the residents.
No, that's fine. There's a lot of information here to
Yes.
digest, so we'll have to look through this, and we'll make sure this gets advertised very well before the next public hearing. so we can
And
actually-
between now and then, I'm actually going to have a neighborhood meeting to include the businesses and the residents. You know,
Understood.
to make sure they all understand what's going on, so they won't be surprised when it happens.
Thank you, Counselor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other proponents?
Good afternoon. Richard Viskey, City CFO, 281 Broadway. I'm here to speak in support of the proposal by the parking director. We are trying to embrace technology the best we could. These 15-minute sensors, again, paid for through a grant, which is great. This will give flexibility to all customers of that area to park for 15 minutes for free without stumbling for money, and get in and out on a lot of the businesses that they may want to go into just briefly without affecting them and risking them parking tickets and such. But definitely need to be cognizant of the revenue loss in that situation. So we're trying a pilot program on Broadway to keep the rates the same with the 15 minutes versus the increase on Shirley Ave, and we'll weigh out the cost benefit of that. You know, certainly not trying to jack the rates up too high, but we really have to be cognizant of losing revenue. But I think the overall plan is great to provide flexibility for a lot of the businesses now that are popping up down there throughout the years with all the construction, and I do feel like parking meters actually help the businesses, not hurt them, by allowing for turnover and parking in that district. So I'm here to support this proposal. Thank you.
Definitely, I agree. All right, commissioners, do we have a motion on the table to move to public hearing, I believe, possibly?
Motion to move to public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Move to public hearing. Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the end.
So it's an update from the traffic working group.
Special add-on.
Okay.
Would like to add 2 additional items regarding Crescent and Walnut Ave traffic calming petitions and recommendations. This is not a public hearing or a request for a public hearing, it is just an update to our
Yep.
findings. Okay.
So Julie DeMauro, Department of Planning and Community Development. So this is our first real recommendations to the Traffic Commission based off of our traffic working group traffic calming petition policy that we enacted this past year. So we had 2 pending traffic petition requests, one from Councilor McKenna for Crescent Avenue for a speed hump there, and also another one from Councilor Ivor Novoselsky for a speed hump at 50 Walnut Ave. What we did is we followed the procedures that we talked about in the traffic working group and the traffic calming policy. And so for Crescent Ave, we did find that there was some speeding. It indicated that the 85% speed was exceeding the posted 25 mile per hour speed limit sign.
That was on Crescent?
What's that?
That was on Crescent?
Yeah, it was on Crescent. It was placed at the 200 block of Crescent. And so what we've talked about in the traffic working group is that we would install removable speed pillows on Crescent Ave, see how that goes, adjacent to the Orchard Street intersection. We'd also install 4-way stop sign at Crescent and Webster. And then we'd also monitor driver behavior with these changes and consider a pillow or additional humps further east and west, or closer to Winthrop Parkway. The traffic board is actually out there right now on the other side of Crescent Ave, so we only have data from one. But I think we can pretty much assume that there will be speeding on the eastern side of Crescent, and then we'd have to figure out where else we would put that speed pillow. So that would be the recommendation for Crescent Ave. For Walnut Ave, the speed sign was placed at 50 Walnut Ave. We did this twice. We originally had done this back in late September, early October. There was some concerns about the data, but then we also did it again at the beginning of March, and there was minimal speeding, if any. So there was no speeding at the 85 percentile speed rate of 25 miles per hour. It is posted as 25. So we're not really recommending anything except for driver education, or maybe putting in a rapid flash beacon pedestrian activated signal there, just to kind of let drivers know that there are pedestrians crossing there. So those are the 2 recommendations for Walnut and for Crescent. We did get an additional request that we look at Walnut Ave further north of this location, so the opposite side of Shirley Ave, so closer to, I think it's between Shirley Ave and Walnut Place. So we are going to activate the speed boards out there and see what comes out of that, and then bring that information back to the traffic working group. Next time when we meet in May, we're hoping to have the information for Charger Street, which was actually a resident petition that was submitted to our group. We'll be looking at Proctor at Adams. That's another resident request. Centennial and Campbell Ave, right now we have it at between 87 and 169 Campbell, but I'll have to review that because you put in a request for dropping it down from a 25 to a 20 miles per hour. That was just for Centennial. That
Campbell,
can't.
Centennial to the Parkway.
It's okay. So I will take a look at that. And then we also have, like I said, Walnut Ave south of Shirley Ave, and then Sagamore Street. I know there was 2 petitions here tonight, or 2 requests to put speed humps on Rice Ave in the Point of Pines. If that wants to be directed to the traffic working group, we can add that to the list.
Yep, as soon as you get the signed petition list, then that can move forward with the traffic working group.
Okay.
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 I'm sorry, is that all?
That's it. That's all I
All
have.
right, so then at this point, I believe we would need the commission to approve the installation of the speed pillows and a four-way stop on Crescent.
So that
and
would
the-
have to be moved to a public hearing because you are adding stuff to the roadway. So yes, so that would have to be a public hearing for May. You're adding stop signs, right?
Yes, but are we positive it has to go to public hearing?
Yes.
Okay,
I believe that it actually has to go to, as a request, because right now it's not a request.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
So then
be-
motion to
It needs to
remove
be
to,
requested in the next meeting, possibly followed by a public hearing, the next one after that.
okay, we should probably look at that, so we should probably change that so it just goes to a public hearing, or the request to public hearing, a little.
I don't think we can.
All right, so motion to approve to a public hearing, I'm sorry, to a request.
So
Which would be the
so-
installation of the speed pillows on Crescent, the four-way stop, and then the pedestrian beacon for Walnut, 50 Walnut Ave.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak on that? Please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ira Novoselsky, 53 D Home Street, Ward 2 Counselor. Honestly, I don't have faith in the speed machine that they put on Walnut Ave. Second of all, the speed posted on that section of Walnut Ave is 20 miles an hour. There's a sign right on there, posted at 20, and they're talking 25 miles an hour. And I'm looking at the numbers, and it looks like it's at the 20-mile-an-hour speed that people are going, or a little more, rather than less. And I challenge that machine, because when people come down the Ave and they see the machine, they know that they are being watched. They see the machine, it's like a cruiser being there, so they're gonna slow down. You
Okay.
don't live there, and people don't live there. The people that live there see what's going on. And personally, what I said before on Campbell Ave about a car coming by, I've parked myself literally standing in front of 50 Walnut Ave and cars coming by at 40 miles an hour. And when I tell them to slow down, they give me the sign.
Okay,
And people know that they speed. Like I said, you don't live there, you're not there all the time. You have to listen to the people that live there.
so Counselor, so would you be requesting us recalibrate the speed sign?
Yes,
Okay.
at
so
20
we can
miles
have-
an hour.
No, we can, well, so the speed sign's accurate, or we're just, the speed should be 20 miles per hour? I'm missing the,
I looked at the ordinance and it's posted as 25 miles per hour.
Well, but
okay,
this,
so we have a disagreement there.
Posted as 20 unless it hasn't been updated in the ordinance.
Is there a sign, you're saying there's a sign
there
that
is a
says 20
sign that
miles per hour?
says 20 miles
Is
an
there?
hour.
I didn't see a sign that said 20.
It's right by the driveway of going into 50 Walnut Ave. There's a yellow sign that says slow.
Take a look, but
All right, let's go find out if that's the case.
You know, the people down there want it. Now, this whole thing was done before the policy was put in effect, so no signatures were obtained. Now, if you want signatures obtained by 10 different residents down there, I will get that for you. But I don't believe this is accurate, and I think we need more than just a flashing sign. It's just another sign that people are just gonna forget.
So Counselor, let's just check on the speed, the posted speed sign there, and find out if it's 20. If it's 20, then we can look at this again and make it more accurate, because the study was done at 25 miles per hour, so.
And that's one thing that nobody's ever been invited to the traffic working group. So we don't know what's going on with that. All of a
It's
sudden,
a-
it just pops up.
So it's not a public, it's just a internal group to make these decisions, to go step by step through the process that was submitted to the council and
Well,
approved.
honestly, you would think that the ward counselor in any ward, never mind just me, would be notified to have some input on this.
Okay,
the
correct me if I'm
on the
wrong, but I
working
believe this
group.
was approved by the council.
So I think the next steps is, because we did look at that day in the traffic working group, when we were looking at the information, we looked at the city ordinance, and it's not listed as 20 miles per hour. So it's either not recorded right in the ordinance, or the ordinance hasn't been adjusted. So let's do this. If you are saying it's 20, let us do the research to find out when it was changed to 20 and how we get it posted correctly. And then if it is not changed, if it's no evidence of it ever being changed, then we'll work to the process of going through the state to have it dropped to 20. Because right now, we've adopted this 25 mile per hour speed limit everywhere in the city. If you want to have it at 20, you have to petition the state. And I have never done that for your street. I've never done that for any street, so I don't know if it was done by somebody else. I'm not quite sure. It might have been, but I don't have record of that. But I'd be more than happy to do the legwork and see what's going on. But I don't think we can really make it, if that is the case, then we can't really make a decision on Walnut Ave tonight.
That's fine. So we can just table Walnut Ave until we get the correct information.
Okay? So it would just be the request for the public hearing for Crescent Ave.
Okay.
Okay?
Commission?
I just had a question about the Walnut Ave. Is there a question about the validity of the speed readings? Is that what I heard?
It's a fairly new machine, let me say that. But like I said, if there was a cruiser parked there, people would slow down. When they see that sign flashing of how fast they're going, to make sure that they're not going faster than they should be, they slow down because they see the machine there. But when there's no machine there, they fly. 2 weeks ago, we had a person get hit by a car about 20 feet from the intersection of Shirley Ave onto Walnut Ave. Ambulance was there, took it to the hospital. Then 2 hours later, another person got hit on the other side of the street of Walnut Ave. It's a bad, bad intersection. We have to get people to slow down, and the only way to do it, as far as I'm concerned, is install a speed bump.
Okay, well, let's follow the traffic calming policy that we have set up. I believe you can use the speed radar sign with the sign off. Is that? I understood, but
Can you turn it off?
can you turn the sign
You
itself
can.
off so people don't realize it's recording the
Yes,
speed?
you can do that.
Okay.
I have requested that, but that's not how this study went. Okay, so I have requested that. I've had, like,
Okay.
2 days, the sign is off. Now we're giving away our secrets, but 2 days, the sign is off, and then.
Now it's out there.
2 more days, the sign turns on, and then you look at the data from those 2 days. So, but now everybody knows. Who's ever watching out there tonight knows the tricks to us trying to catch you speeding. So, yeah. So that's that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commission, do we have any motions on the table for the Crescent Ave traffic calming measures?
I don't believe there is any motions.
Well, this is a
Well, we have the motion to move it to
this was a recommendation. Why
a
can't we?
request.
Why can't we accept the recommendation and move it to
Okay,
a
we'll
public
just
hearing?
move it to a request. I don't know.
I think it has to be on the agenda as a request first.
Okay, so we'll add this to the agenda for a request first, and then we'll move it to
Yes.
public hearing. Thank
Anyone
you.
can add a request for next meeting, and then we can move it to a public hearing then.
I'm glad we figured that out. Thank you. Let's, that's all we have for today. So motion to
Mr.
adjourn the
Chairman, motion to
meeting.
adjourn?
Yes, second.
Second.
Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.